Hello, everybody. Today I'm with Barry Feldman. He is a chap that I met at the Social Media Marketing World Conference 2014. He was wearing some fancy attire, which he'll probably mention in terms of his personal branding, very fancy attire. And it got my attention, started chatting. I said, hey, would you like to do an interview? And here we are. I'm going to be talking about personal branding, and the structure we're going to use is an A to Z. Yes, I said Z, not Z. You and your spreading Sesame Street trying to get us all to say A to Z. But we're going to be doing personal branding, and I'm going to pass the mic over, as we say in stand-up, to Barry. He'll explain what he's up to. Then we're going to do a really high-energy, rapid-fire A to Z, yes, through to well, what you can be doing on your personal branding based on an infographic that's going to be linked near to this video. So, Barry, how are you doing?
Yes, sir. What's your mate? Happy to be here. I love that introduction.
Good. Well, it's good to see you. And do you want to let people know who you are, your background to start with, and then maybe your foreground? Is that the way to do that?
The foreground, and well, you didn't warn me about the foreground part, but I'm used to doing the background part. All right, I'm a middle-aged gray and marketing guy. You see the goatee there is kind of multicolored, and so I grew up, I guess, knowing that communications was in my future, and I studied broadcasting. And my first job was in public relations. That's not where I belonged, and I wound up having about a 10-year career in the ad agency business. In 1995, I left, hung a shingle, called myself Feldman Creative, and so the best word to describe that would be freelance copywriter, and I've been that for a long time. I am a solopreneur in the classic sense, but I do sort of run a virtual shop, in that there's lots of partners that help me get the work done now. But what's changed, and how I like to define myself now more so than a copywriter, is I'm a content marketing consultant. And so most of my clients are brand new to content marketing, sometimes the larger picture, online marketing, inbound marketing, or they're trying and failing at it. And so I'm taking people that are struggling with content marketing, and as we both know, it changes rather quickly, and there's a lot to it, or that are coming to discover it and sort of taking the dollars that once went into traditional marketing and reallocating them into online marketing. I'm helping those people, and I'm helping them from the beginning through to the days that we publish stuff. So planning, auditing, publishing, analyzing, refining, and that's how it works.
That's great. And you're getting more into Google Plus.
I'm getting more into Google Plus. I mean, I was definitely an early adopter, but I can't say that I was good at it. And it was always that extra one that like a plus meant like I got to do that one too, plus. So I've been a Twitter freak for 3 or 4 years, and Facebook usually think of as for social purposes almost entirely, even though you'll find my content on my profile or on my, what is it with Facebook? Is it profile or page? That's your business one. It's your page, I guess. So so I keep paying close attention, and I have paid closer and closer attention to Google Plus. And as you know, I have a lot of questions about it, as does everybody, and now I know where to get them answered.
That's great, and it's good to have you on board. And to everybody watching, I can see Dustin and Mark and Pam and Jason and Marilyn and Monica, I think, going to turn up as well. So I'll try and pull some questions in as we go, and probably have a few at the end. But we said we're going to do rapid fire, A to Z, and personal branding. Let's begin with that, actually, before we get going. What is personal branding? Why does it matter?
Well, it's really treating the brand that might have otherwise been a company or a cause, taking an individual approach to that. And we know today that the millennial workplace are far less likely to stay put and work for a company their entire life, and so forth. So even people that have and love their jobs, that are thinking about the personal brand element to it, are bloggers, and they're active on social media. So this is okay now. Somebody who went to work years ago and spent their time promoting their own cause instead of the businesses wouldn't have lasted long on that job. But now people as employees, their agenda can be to promote themselves, and with it call attention to their company. So I think when you understand that your personal brand really begins with everything you do online, and of course because of the changes that have happened in media, that begins when you're a kid now, because you're given an iPhone or a smartphone of some type, and you pick your poison. In my kids' ages, it's Instagram heavily and Snapchat, and the things you do cause a digital footprint. And so your objectives in that infographic we're going to talk about today, I list 8 benefits of a personal brand, and so I don't think they all apply to everybody, but they are, getting your ideal clients, finding rewarding partnerships, finding leadership opportunities, building mind share, an association with your market niche, building credibility, getting more recognized, getting more prestige, and getting higher perceived values. So it kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish. You could think of it as what people see when they Google you. That's certainly a quick way to assess your personal brand. You could think of it as the things you put on your LinkedIn page, or you could think of it as everything you do. Because these things we do digitally have a everlasting footprint. So your personal brand is something that's really come to the forefront. I've just started offering tips about it probably this year, and it might be the subject that I field the most questions about now.
Yeah, it's great. Now let's just touch on your personal brand as well, because when we met, you were wearing a fancy pair of pants.
Yeah, I'm not wearing them now, so I'm not going to show them, but I can get your picture of that if you want to put that in your post.
Yeah, we'll add it in. So, and you had, it was patches, wasn't it? Or it was Pinterest and Google Plus and Facebook and wherever. That was you saying that you were a social guy and also a talking point.
Yeah, I called myself Social Media Pants that day, and I made a shirt. I don't know if you know the history on it. I think that was the first time we crossed paths. I was talking to somebody about my need to learn more about Google Plus, and they go, "That guy." So I went to your session, and then I lent you my camera, I guess. So that's our back.
Oh, I returned it. Look at that. That's how we became friends. It worked.
Yeah. I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
Exactly, but I would have a camera.
Yeah. So I was wearing jeans with 20 patches of popular social media networks on them. They're icons, largely recognizable by everybody. Even if you didn't know every one of them, you'd certainly recognize the Twitter bird and the plus and so forth. And so that called a lot of attention to myself. I'll have to fill you in here real quickly as I possibly can. The backstory is, I guess, part of my personal brand. It's like 90 degrees here today, so I wouldn't typically be wearing this, but this is people recognize this hat because I've used it in my avatar. So I thought if we're talking personal branding, I better look the part. So another part of my personal brand, I guess, at media conferences is I'm sort of the creative class clown. And so it started about 3-4 years ago when I went to Blog World. I was new to Twitter, and I came up with this icebreaker. The shirt said, "I'm at Feldman Creative, where are you at?" And the back of the shirt had a picture of the bird's ass, and it said, "Are you following me?" And so I carried Sharpies around, and I had people write their handles all over me. So as you might imagine, I met a lot of people, started a lot of conversations. I got my picture taken like all day that day. And by the time I heard people going, "There goes the Twitter guy." So I called that thing my Twee shirt, and I felt the need to have a sequel almost every big conference I go to. So I'm going to leave some of them out, but my favorites were the one in between then and the one of was Pinterest was red hot. This was early 13 probably. So I made this like 2.5 foot hat, which was an inverted red push pin with a gigantic pin sticking up out of the top. The idea there was to collect business cards by having people shish kebab their cards on my head. That wound up putting holes about that big in the business cards, rendering them completely useless. So that nail was a pretty big diameter. So what I did instead was put push pins all over the place on my hat, and so I became like a bulletin board of business cards. The event we just went to, Social Media Marketing World, in the spring of 2014, concentrates on social media, hence the name Social Media Marketing World. And I came up with this idea that my pants would be covered with all the icons, and I'm sure you saw me getting my picture taken. I probably got my picture taken 100 times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, it's good. And Dustin says, were you fancy pants? Yes, you were fancy pants. That's how you know.
Fancy pants. Yeah, we could put links to that stuff on my blog. There's a summary of all that stuff.
Yeah, great. Well, let's now move towards the infographic, and we're going to run through the A to Z. I'm just pasting your culture. Let's begin with the A, authenticity. What's that all about?
I think it's a great way to begin talking about personal branding, and so it conveniently starts with an A. And what it's about is being yourself. I think you are going to be one way or another. You're going to be a commodity. Martin Shervington is, at least one of the things you are is a Google Plus expert, and you have services accordingly. However, there's a lot of Google Plus experts, so I don't have to get my questions answered by you. So I think of you first as some of the things I've come to know since I've come to know you. You're English, you surf, you're building businesses, you're an
Welsh, but
author.
you thought I was English. It's okay. I'm actually Welsh. You don't know
You're
that.
Welsh.
I am.
Okay,
It's
so
all right.
you got some personal branding work to do, dude.
I know. I need to get the dragon on the.
Well, you're a comedian. I mean, so I think of these things first, really, when I think of you, not just that plus guy. And so I think authenticity, when you bring it to what you do, it's the conversation, and what else is there in media today? Your progress is going to trace to the conversation. So, if you know my personal brand and you read my stuff, it's not just about the things I know. It's it's about, you're going to quickly know that I'm a rock and roll maniac, and I play guitar, and I have 2 daughters, and I love dogs, and I have a good sense of humor, and I'm the class clown at various conferences and so forth. So this authenticity thing, I wrote a piece for Convince and Convert called "Who Cares What Chris Brogan is Drinking." If you get his emails on Sunday nights, he starts off telling you about what tea or coffee he's drinking. And for like a year and a half, I'm like, dude, why do I care? And when I finally talked to him about that, he said, it's not. He said it's the quintessential conversation starter. He says it's the thing that I get asked about the most. So and so. What about that tea? What about that coffee? So when you do that, when you bring it, when you pour yourself into your work, you're giving yourself the chance to make the connections it takes to succeed these days. Otherwise, I think you're not that authentic. People put on their journalist hat or whatever, and they blend in with the pack.
Okay, great. So next one, blog.
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to not advise that if you're going into personal branding, that you call the sort of the centerpiece and the home of your personal brand your blog. Now, if that's intimidating to you and you don't yet have the time or have the resources or don't have the technical skills to get into WordPress, you could make a home for yourself in various places. LinkedIn's about to help you out with that, with a publishing platform. Of course, Tumblr makes it very easy to blog, Blogger, WordPress.com. So don't want to give a lesson on blogging here today, but I think if you're going to build a personal brand, at the earliest possible moment when you can figure out how to technically do that and get schooled in blogging, it should be understood that that's part of the job. You're going to blog. That's your voice.
Okay, so should you have one blog, do you think?
Well, you should have at least one blog. I don't think there's anything wrong with having more than one. They might have different objectives. We talked briefly about the fact that you have 2. There's probably good things about that and bad. Certainly, it's a stretch on your resources.
Yeah, it's interesting. The reason I got 2 isn't because I wanted to. It's because the first one grew to a point that I wanted to build the team and build the community and have other people involved. And having it on martinshervington.com, because that's my personal brand, it wasn't something that could be existing without me. So that's why. But if I was doing it at this moment, then I'd build one.
Yeah,
but as I mentioned,
I have one. It's at Feldman Creative. It's called The Point, and its intention is to to get you to learn from me. It's where I teach you the things I know, the techniques and tools and tactics that become online marketing weapons. But there I try to protect the integrity of it. I don't often allow guest posts. I don't sell anything. There's no advertising. There's no AdWords. There's no affiliates. There might be, but I think if I had another blog, it would probably be to be the cornerstone of a place where I was pursuing my passions, like maybe guitar teaching or something like that, and therefore you would see those things. It would be more commercial than my personal branding blog.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Next one. Content. The C.
Well, content begins with blogging, and so it follows nicely that it goes ABC that way. But I think when you get into it and you're building a personal brand, you have to recognize, and I guess we'll talk about this when we get to M for media, but you have to recognize now that in the era of the smartphone, the Google glasses, the wristwatches, what have you, people consume media differently. with different preferences, different times of day, and so forth. And so when you get into taking content seriously, you're stepping beyond just your blog, and you're looking at the media tastes of your clients and friends and the people you are trying to reach. So that might include audio. It might include, what we're doing now, video interviews, and the list isn't that long, but it's getting longer. It could include slide shares and infographics and lists and stuff. And so media choices keep multiplying, and I think you become a content creator as a personal brand builder through learning what the preferences are of your audience and experimenting, seeing when they really do work.
Well, just before we go on to the next one, I'd like to expand on one that you didn't mention there, which is we talked about before, ebooks. Can you explain what you do with ebooks and how that can become the stud in your stable? I think that's what
yeah, well, now you're going to have to put that in your blog because people are going to want to learn more about it. But yeah, I told you offline that I'm often asked to write ebooks, and sometimes comes with some sort of sticker shock about the price going into it. And the sticker shock, the reason why it costs more than people expect is I'm putting a hell of a lot of time into the upfront work, which is the research and planning of it. And so I wrote a piece, one of the more popular pieces I've ever done, that was a slideshow on SlideShare, and later became the centerpiece for a variety of articles I've written, where I explain the ebook is the stud in your content marketing stable, such that what I mean by that is you do a lot of planning. Like I use as an example a piece that I did several years ago called 21 Pointers to Sharpen Your Website. So that's a stud, and I put a lot of thought and planning into what those 21 points are, and I made the point with like 50 to 100 words. It was a pretty quick read. And then the idea was, studs make beautiful babies. And so from that piece became, 21 stories, 21 interviews, 21 memes, whatever it is you decide to have. And so I think, more often than not, an ebook is sort of the other way around, sort of retro created. So somebody sort of riffed on a topic for a while, and they go, oh, if I put those together, I have an ebook. And I'm not condemning that strategy. That's not a bad strategy, but I'm proposing that the opposite strategy is a better strategy, particularly if you're just new to content marketing. Like a Content Marketing 101 package might be an ebook, of any length that answers the main questions your customers have, and then you're not lost for subject matter for another 12 months, 18 months because you're slicing and dicing it.
And the infographic that we keep referring to that will be around this video, we're doing that right now. We're taking that content, 26 things, 26 letters, and we're going through each of them. Each of these could get turned into a mini video, or I'll probably cut it up into sections, but that's a lot of value. And then you can take it into audio. We could have this as 1-minute clips, or 5 minutes, whatever it might be. There's so much you can do.
So sometimes these are premeditated things, and sometimes these are lucky strikes. I am suddenly kind of a go-to guy to talk about personal branding. I can't say I saw that one coming. I guess to some degree I detected that people have a lot of questions about it, and there was a time, it was real recently actually, where about 3 or 4 of my clients were building websites basically with their name as the domain. And so I was helping them with personal branding, and it's only been, I don't know, a decade and a half, I think, since that term's even existed.
Yeah.
And so now we've come to realize what it is and how important it is. And so I'm regressing a little bit, but to speak to your point, yeah, I had this idea for some reason when I started making a list of tips on personal branding. A lot of the letters were covered. I figured a little imagination, I could fill in the blanks. I found a partner, his name's Seth Price, who does a lot of content marketing for Playster, and asked him to do the design. And it is a stud in our stable, and it wasn't really premeditated. So yeah, I might be riffing on this one for a while. I'm certainly going to take it and make a SlideShare because of my love for SlideShare, and that hasn't happened yet. And so who knows what's going to happen as a result of this infographic. So yeah, really when you're talking about building studs, it doesn't have to be an ebook, but it has to be a big idea.
Wonderful. Okay, D, define your audience.
Define your audience. I think the mistake brands make, personal or otherwise, is they want to be everything to everybody, and that's no way to succeed. And so even if, like, your business might be a good example, even if you develop a beachhead, and that beachhead, for the sake of this conversation, is a Google Plus expertise, training, so forth, it doesn't mean it's all you do. But when the more niche-y you are in modern media, the more likely you're going to succeed. We've seen it happen with cable television and the unbelievable number of choices, and radio stations, and you go to the magazine rack and there's hundreds and hundreds, and so specializing is important. So I think what you want to do is develop a niche, define it, and then come to understand to a great extent, to every degree that you can, exactly who you're talking to, how old are they, what's their job, sort of all the obvious demographic stuff, and then the psychographic stuff, and that's becoming more important than it used to be because of media consumption. Like when I was talking about that just a second ago, what about the person who loves listening to podcasts? You mentioned we might take the audio portion of this thing. That they're dog walkers, or they're commuters, or they're exercisers. You have to think about that. So defining your audience is knowing, what are their pleasures and pains, and how they behave on media today.
Okay, great. Next one, email list.
Email list. God, I love this one. This is another theme I'm riffing on this year, and another thing that I'm getting interviewed about and creating resources about, because I've just come to this point in time where I'm so frustrated, where people, there is this thing, content marketing is the new SEO. I really hate that discussion, but, to get to the bottom line, people are realizing if you don't have content and you don't know how to do content marketing, you're going to lose out in terms of web traffic to people that do. But I like to tell people, that's not the goal. The goal is not getting people to your website. That doesn't feed the family. The goal is getting people to come to your website a lot. And so when they get there, you need to find out who they are. And if you have a long sales cycle, or if you're in the business world, that has become what's your email. I'm going to nurture you. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to let you know when we have news and programs and discounts and events and what have you through email. And so while again it's a tax on your resources, your time, you're perhaps asking for technical skills you don't have, you need to build an email list. The sooner you begin doing that, the better.
Okay,